Talk to us about the mood on the ground. What are people talking about, especially in view of what happened last week? After all, the Kenyan alleged perpetrators of the 2007 post-election violence are off the hook.
Yeah, as you can imagine, Deputy President William Ruto and his co-accused Joshua Sang were elated about the verdict, and the excitement was equal, if not more, in their home grounds. They both come from Rift Valley, but not quite the same for victims. They were disappointed. Remember, the local mechanism had borne no fruit. The cases against the so-called Ocampo Six, as they were called, had all collapsed. This was really their last chance, or the last. They were hoping that through this case, somebody would be held accountable for the violence that caused them so much harm, deaths, and also loss of property, and their relocation to other places they never knew was home before. But the verdict itself, as you can imagine, had the potential to polarize the country. And the opposition, led by Raila Odinga, then chose to issue congratulatory messages to Ruto and Sang. Although Mr. Odinga's sentiments today, if you may have heard, might change things completely, at least politically speaking, because he told AFP in France today that the decision spelled doom for the international justice system and a fight against impunity, and that it's unlikely that the ICC would be a deterrent to any other African leader, because according to him, African leaders was, and every other leader for that matter, was supposed to fear the ICC, that it would hold them accountable for any atrocity that they might visit or cause to their civilian population. If I can, take you back to last week, for journalists, it was really an anxious day that day, because no one knew which way the ruling would go. Not even the defense counsels. I did speak to the Deputy President's lead counsel that day, Karim Khan, and he told me that they had pleaded with the court to allow them to have that verdict in advance, even if it was just for 2 hours ahead of everyone. But they were not granted that luxury. So they also had to keep refreshing their emails, just as we did. And, journalists had to even prepare 2 scripts, anticipating a ruling that would be that would go either way. Yeah.
Now, give us an update on the victims. Have they all been resettled, or do you still have some in internally displaced camps?
Well, there has been programs that the government has been running, the resettlement programs. Those programs, I think, have basically been concluded, because all the victims that were in camps that immediately after the violence, there were several camps that came up, and from those camps, the government tried to have everybody resettled, at least on some pieces of land that were bought by government. They were given some little money just to start them off and even rebuild their homes. But that, according to victims, really is not enough. It does not address the whole justice issue. Nobody has been held accountable for that violence. Yes, they have been resettled, but it's not enough. So for some of them, they lost really everything. And a little something from the government might not really be enough to start them off. It cannot pay for the people who they lost, really, and the bodily harm that it might they may have suffered.
Finally, Sylvia, how is the Kenyan media covering the story?
Well, at this point, the Kenyan media, of course, is being very cautious about the situation in the country. We do not want to be to again polarize the country because of this. For many Kenyans, the ruling. For many, the ruling really should have gone this way, just for the sake of appeasing all sides, because it was seen that crucifying 2 people for all that violence was unfair. So at this moment, the media is approaching this thing very cautiously. We do not want to air, sentiments from members of the political class that would be seen to be insightful. And I believe even the political class is being a bit, not cagey, but a bit controlled about their remarks to the public. This week we are expecting, this weekend we are expecting the deputy president and the president to go to to attend a political rally, which they say or call it a Thanksgiving rally after the verdict. It is the place that they started off. It's the place they cemented their union, and which led or took them to State House, basically. But really, everybody in the country at this moment, at least for the media particularly, there is that sense of awareness that what we report could build or break this country.
Are you surprised that the media is covering the story that way, especially given that part of the media, of course, is owned by the state and the other is owned by the Kenyan elite who are very closely associated with the people in charge of the country?
Yeah, that's true indeed, but even then, journalists have, since the violence, several journalists have really undergone trainings, and there is really that consciousness among journalists that they need to be, they need to exercise that gatekeeping role very keenly.
Well, thank you so much, Sylvia Chebet from Citizens Television, our affiliate station in Kenya. Well, you're tuned into Straight Talk Africa, and we'll have more of a discussion in a moment, but first here is Ayen Bior. Take it away, Ayen.
Thanks, Shaka. And still to come, we'll reveal some of the fantastic feedback we received from our audience through social media. But now, here's our letter of the week from a Straight Talk Africa Facebook fan. Our letter of the week comes from Patricia Nambi, who writes, "The ICC failed to prove that William Ruto planned the violence against humanity in Kenya. Without concrete evidence, one can't be considered guilty. This case was probably based on hearsay, or no witness was bold enough to come out and testify against Mr. Ruto. The ICC should first get concrete evidence before accusing African leaders."